Dear students, viewers, and the subscribers, welcome to the IAS Mentor. This would be our lecture number 101 in the series Indian Polity. We have covered almost 100 lectures, and from now on, we will have some 20 to 25 lectures before we will complete this series. By end of this month, or maybe the first week of May, we will be completing this particular series. So presently we are looking into the topic of center-state relationship. So we already covered some of the important dimensions of the center-state relationship. If you look into the center-state relationship, it is basically dealing with the areas of division of powers between the center and the state. And broadly, there are three areas of division of powers. One is the legislative domain, and then you have the executive domain and the financial domain as well. So you already seen as to how there is division of powers between the center and the state when it comes to the legislative relationship. So now presently in this lecture we are going to deal with as to how there can be division of powers between the center and the state when it comes to administrative, that is executive, and financial relationship. That is basically what you'll have to understand. So basically what does it mean by administrative relationship? Administrative relationship basically means what is the power of the union executives and what is the power of the state executives. Now union executive mean it includes the president, the prime minister and the council of ministers, and the state executives basically mean the governor, the chief minister and the council of ministers, the political executives of course. So now the question is, to what extent the union executive can exercise their power? To what extent the state executives can exercise their power? So based on which they exercise their power, is there something that is specified in the constitution? Of course, yes. In a constitutional system of government, everything is specified in the constitution, and in a federal political system, there is a clear demarcation of division of powers, not just in the legislative domain, but also in the executive domain. So let us try to understand. And two important articles that you have to understand in this particular regard. So one is Article 256 of the Constitution, and then of course Article 257 of the Constitution as well. So first let us try to understand as to what is given in Article 256 of the Constitution. So if you carefully read Article 256 of the Constitution, it says that the executive power of every state, that is basically which is exercised by the governor, the chief minister and the council of ministers in that particular state, the executive power of every state has to be exercised in accordance with a law made by the concerned state legislature. That means the executive powers cannot deviate from what the law says. And what law? The law made by the state legislature. So the executive power of the state has to be strictly in line with the laws made by the state legislature. Not only with respect to the law made by the state legislature, but also it has to be strictly in line with the law made by the parliament as well. So which means you should have an understanding that the executive power of the state cannot go beyond the law of the parliament. So it has to be in line with the law that is made by the parliament. Now in this context, let me just put you a question. Just try to answer this particular question. You can put your answers in the comment box. The Citizenship Amendment Act has been made by the Parliament. There is some element of criticism, but some of the states in India has said that they are not going to implement the Citizenship Amendment Act. But Article 256 of the Constitution is saying that the executive power of any state has to be in line with the law that is made by the Parliament. So therefore, try to understand under Article 256 of the Constitution, it is making it very clear what is the executive power of the state. The executive power of the state has to be in line, or it cannot breach the law that is made by the state legislature, and the executive power of the state shall also be exercised in accordance with the law that is made by the parliament. In case if the executive power of the state is deviating from what is given in Article 256, and to that extent the center can give directions, that is the union executive can give directions under Article 256 of the Constitution. So I'm just repeating it again. What kind of directions can be given by the center? The center can inform the state, see, the way that you are exercising your executive power is deviating from the law that is made by the parliament, or it is in deviation of the law made by the state legislature. So therefore, you will have to exercise in power, executive power in accordance with these laws. So this is what Article 256 of the Constitution is saying. So Article 256 of the Constitution is restricting the executive power of the state to be in line with the laws made by the state legislature and the laws made by the parliament. Article 256 of the Constitution is also giving the union to give directions to the state in this particular regard, that you please carry out your executive power in accordance with the law that is passed by the parliament and the state legislature. So this is what is Article 256 of the Constitution, very, very important. What could be the consequence in case of violation of Article 256? Consequences for the state. So I am just putting a question mark here. Later I will discuss what could be the possible consequences, and if any of the student know the answer, you can put it in the comment box. I'll discuss that at the end, but if you know the answer, you put it in the comment box. What could be the possible consequences for violation of Article 256 by any of the states in our country? Now with that, we'll move to Article 257 of the Constitution, which also broadly deals with the administrative relationship. Now what is Article 257 of the Constitution is saying? Article 257 of the Constitution is making it very clear that the union can give some directions to the state, not only the directions to the state, but apart from that, most importantly, Article 257 of the Constitution is saying that the executive power of the state shall not be carried in such a way that it will impede or it will prejudice the executive power of the union. Or in other words, the executive power of the states, the way that the executives in the state might function or act, it shall not impede or prejudice the executive power of the union. Impede means create any obstruction to the executive power of the union. So they have to be very careful in the way they exercise their powers. For example, let us assume the army is under the control of the union. The state shall not exercise. The army is stationed in different parts of the country. So the state shall not exercise their executive powers in such a way that they create problem to the army, because army is coming under the union executive power. So therefore the executive power of the states has to be exercised within a state in such a way that it is not going against the executive power of the union, or it is creating any problem to the executive power of the union. So this is something that they have to take into account. So this is basically the crux of Article 257 of the Constitution. And apart from that, Article 257 of the Constitution is also giving the power to the union to give some direction to the state. So who can give directions? Union can give direction to the state, and the vice versa is not possible. And what areas they can give directions to the state? The union government can direct the state government to protect the railway lines in that particular state. The union government can direct the state government to protect the communication installments in that particular state, which is of national importance. So these are all some of the directions that can be given by the union to the states under Article 257 of the Constitution. So if you combinedly read both Article 256 and Article 257 of the Constitution, you will categorically understand this, that in both the cases a primacy is given to the union. For example, Article 256 is saying that the state executives shall exercise their power not to violate the laws made by the parliament. It is not saying contrary. Similarly, if you read Article 257 of the Constitution, it is a state, they shall not exercise their executive powers which will impede the executive power of the union, but it is not contrary. And Article 257 is also saying that the center can give some directions to the state and not the states can give some directions to the center. So therefore, here also you will understand, though there is some element of division of powers when it comes to the executive power, who is given more powers under the Constitution? It is the union that is given more powers under the Constitution when it comes to the executive powers also. It is not only in case of what is called as the legislative powers. Even in legislative powers, in the previous lectures we have understood, in number of areas, the parliament is empowered to make a law on an item in the state list. So therefore, an element of federal supremacy is there when it comes to legislative powers. And similarly, there is an element of supremacy when it comes to what is called as executive powers as well. So this is what you'll have to understand with regard to the executive powers. But in a federal political system, there is always some element of, I would say, conflict between the center and the state. So this conflict between the center and the state is inevitable. So this conflict between the center and the state in our country is not only with regard to the legislative relationship, but also with regard to what is called as an executive relationship. So I'll give some examples. So conventionally, there are certain areas of conflict between the center and the state. So one such area of conflict between the center and the state with regard to their administrative relationship is the All India services. So presently, how many All India services are there in our country? If you know the answer, you can put it in the comment box. So I'll give the options also. The number of All India services in our country is 3, 4, 5 and 6. So among the three options that I have given, one is the right answer. So for example, one All India service, for example, is the Indian Administrative Service. If you know the other All India services, you can put it in the comment box. Indian Administrative Service is an All India service. Now, what is the problem with this All India service for the states? Because if you see the way that the All India Service officers are recruited, they are all recruited by Union Public Service Commission. The Union Public Service Commission is a recruiting body, and then the All India Service officers are appointed by the Government of India. So UPSC is only a recruiting body, nothing more than that. I'll discuss in detail about the Union Public Service Commission when I take up the topic of constitutional bodies. For time being, you try to understand UPSC is a recruiting body which recruits the All India Service officers, and subsequently they are appointed by the Government of India. The Government of India appoints them. But these officers of the All India Service, they are appointed in various states. They are appointed to the various states in our country, and they occupy highest position in the state administration. The secretaries to various government departments in various states, the district collectors, they are all India Service officers. They are all IAS officers. Now, what is the concern that the state will have with regard to the All India Service? The concern that the states have with regard to the All India Services, that while the All India Service officers like the Indian Administrative Service officers, they occupy highest position in the state administration, but the state government has no control over these officers. The state government does not have much disciplinary control over these officers. At the maximum, the state government can transfer the All India Service officers. Sometimes they can suspend these All India Service officers, but they do not have any power to punish the All India Service officers, including the Chief Minister of that particular state or the Governor of that particular state. So who can take action against the All India Service officers, like the people who are part of the Indian Administrative Service? It is only the central government that has got the power to take disciplinary actions against the All India Service officers. So therefore, the basic concern of the state is that these officers, All India Service officers, they are occupying highest position in the state, but we do not have any control over them. So in a federal political system, the officers who are working in the state government should be under the disciplinary control of the state government. Then only you can say that to be a truly federal political system, but that is not there in our country. That is basically the concern of the state. So it is not my personal view, it is only what is the concern of the state. So that is why you can understand why India is not considered to be a truly federal political system. India is only a quasi-federal political system, because the constitution has nowhere given the equal division of powers between the center and the state, even in with regard to the administrative relationship. So one more example that I can give is the emergency provisions. Now you can understand that when a national emergency is imposed under Article 352 of the Constitution, the center will have complete executive power over the state. The parliament can take up the law-making powers on the items in the state list. So therefore, the federal political system turns unitary in character. So this is also a concern of some of the states. Not only the national emergency, but also what is called a state emergency or the president rule. When the president rule is also imposed, the administration of a particular state is completely taken up by the President of India. So therefore, to that extent also, the federal political system turns unitary in character. So some of the states in our country has raised concern about all these provisions, but the provisions continue to exist. So these are all some issues that you can use it in your answer writing. And then of course, office of the governor. So the governor under the Constitution of India, those who watched my previous lectures, you will clearly understand the governor under the Constitution of India has dual role to perform. One is that he is the constitutional head of the state, and he is also a representative or a link between the center and the states. So therefore, the governor plays a very crucial role, and the office of the governor can be used to create problems to the state government. Say for example, under Article 200 of the Constitution, it is the governor who has to give the assent. whenever the bills are presented by the state legislature to the governor. But the governor can withhold the assent to the bill, and if the governor is withholding the assent to the bill, the state government has no authority over it. So therefore, it might be possible that the governor might create problems to the state government, which he is not supposed to do. He is supposed to act as a neutral person. But if the office of the governor is politicized, it can create problem to the states. So therefore, these are all some of the concerns that has been raised by various state governments in our country, and they continue to exist as a center-state relationship dispute or a conflict when it comes to the administrative side. So these are all conventional issues. These are all issues that is happening from a long point of time. Recently, of late, one of the issues that has been concern, or one of the concern that has been raised by various state government, is the using of authority like Central Bureau of Investigation (CBI) against the various state officials and the state government. So again, it is an issue related to what is called a center-state relationship, but I'll discuss in detail about CBI when I take up a topic which is called as constitutional, statutory and extra constitutional bodies. That is again a very, very important topic. So these are all some examples of dispute between the center and the state. All right. So our discussion of the center-state relationship will not be over unless and until I complete the discussion of what is called as a financial relationship. So therefore, what we have discussed right now, we have completed the legislative relationship in the previous lecture. We have seen the administrative relation between the center and the state. So now we are going to another important dimension, which is the financial relationship between the center and the states. Now, why financial relation between the center and the state is very, very important? It is important because without finances, no government will be able to carry out its administration. Be it the central government, be it the state government, both require finances to carry out their administration. So similarly, to what extent they need the finances is taken care by the Constituent Assembly. And the Constituent Assembly, when they drafted the Constitution, they have given the financial powers to the center and the states. So therefore, it is a constitution which itself is giving the financial powers to the center and the state. And majorly their financial powers comes from what is called as taxation. So how do the central government mobilize resources to carry out its administration? By taxing the people. Now similarly, the state government also has a power to tax the people in that particular state. But on what areas the center can tax and on what areas the state can tax is given in the constitution itself. It is not as per the whims and fancies of the respective government, but the governments can tax only on those areas where they are authorized to do under the Constitution of India. But however, please keep it in your mind, when I talk of the financial resources of the center and the state, majorly their finances comes from what is called as a taxation or the sources through taxing the people or by other taxation sources. But it is not the only source of finances to the government. There are also certain non-tax revenues. But however, in both the cases, be it tax or non-tax revenue, on what area they can mobilize their financial resources is provided in the Constitution of India. For example, if you look into the Constitution says that the union government will be able to tax on all the areas which is mentioned in the union list. So whatever item that is there in the union list, in the previous lecture we have seen the items that is there in the union list. So whatever item that is there in the union list, the Constitution is giving the power to the Parliament to make a law, and by that law it can empower the union government to collect the tax. So this is what basically you'll have to understand. So some of the examples of such taxes include income tax, taxing on non-agricultural land. These are all some examples. Now similarly, the state can also mobilize taxes, but what are the areas on which the state can mobilize the taxes? The state can mobilize taxes or it can collect taxes on all the areas which is mentioned in the state list. So here also, whatever item that is there in the state list, the state legislature can make a law, and based on that particular law, the state legislature can empower the state government to collect the taxes. So therefore, you can understand how the financial resources are mobilized by the center and the states. It is only based on these financial resources that they mobilize. They use it for various welfare schemes. They use it to pay the government employees, their salaries, their allowances. They are all paid from these resources. But apart from that, there is also something which is called as residuary powers of taxation. Residuary powers of taxation means if some item is not mentioned in the union list, some item is not mentioned in the state list, then if a tax is to be imposed on that particular item or subject matter, then who will have the power to do that? It is the power of the parliament to make a law and allow the center to collect the taxes. So residuary powers of taxation belongs to what is called as the union. And whatever item in the state list, that belongs to the state government. Whatever is item in the union list, that belongs to the union government. Apart from all those things, today there is presently what is called as goods and services taxes. So goods and services taxes is an exception where both the center and the state can impose the both the center and the state can collect the taxes. So you might understand the GST reforms, which is the only area where both the center and state can collect the taxes. Apart from that, whatever is in the union item, the union will collect. Whatever is in the state will collect. Whatever is the residuary powers, which is not mentioned in the union and the state, it will be collected by the union. So this is basically how the broader, I would say, the ways that the center and the state can mobilize their financial resources. But what is more important is how these financial resources are used by the state. Now, if you look into the way that it has been further given in the constitution as to how the Constituent Assembly has designed it, you can see that the center has more areas on which they can mobilize the taxes because there are more number of items in the union list. Not only the number of items, but the quantum of financial resources, taxes that can be collected is also more in the union list. But the number of items that is given in the state list is very, very less. But however, on the contrary, if you see the responsibilities of the state, it is much higher. The state has more responsibilities because the state has to implement all the laws which is made by the state legislature. The state has to implement all the laws that is made by the parliament in the concurrent list also. Therefore, the functions and responsibilities of state is much higher. And the Constituent Assembly thought the financial resources that can be mobilized by the state from the items in the state list may not be sufficient enough for the state to perform all its duties and responsibilities. That is the reason the way it has been designed, or you can understand beautifully, it has been designed by the Constituent Assembly. So whatever is the financial resources, please try to listen here, whatever is the financial resources that will be mobilized by any state in our country, financial resources mobilized by any state in our country is only for that particular state. So for example, there are 28 states in our country. Whatever financial resources that they mobilize, they can use it for their own expenditure and developmental activities. But whatever is the financial resource that is mobilized by the center cannot keep it itself, all the resources. Suppose if the center collects 1000 units, I'm just taking an example. That 1000 units is further divided into what is called as divisible and non-divisible pool. Divisible and non-divisible pool. Suppose, let us, for example, for easy understanding, suppose there are 500 units in the divisible pool and 500 units in the non-divisible pool. The Constitution is saying that out of the 1000 units that you have collected as the taxes, whatever is part of the divisible pool, you'll have to divide it to the states. And whatever is part of the non-divisible pool, you can keep it to yourself. Okay, so how much of this divisible pool will go to the states? That will be decided by a specialized body, or that will be decided by a constitutional body that is called as a Finance Commission of India. So that is exactly the role of Finance Commission of India. If you know the answer, under which article the Finance Commission of India is established? The Finance Commission of India is a constitutional body. If you know the answer, you can put it in the comment box. So I am not discussing that because when I discuss the constitutional bodies, I'll discuss about all these bodies in detail. So right now I'm not discussing much. But one of the important function of the Finance Commission of India is what they have to do. So they have to see whatever is the financial resources that is mobilized by the center, which is further divided into divisible and non-divisible pool. So based on the example that I have taken, divisible and non-divisible pool, if the total financial resource mobilized is 1000 units, and suppose let us assume 500 unit is part of divisible pool and 500 unit is part of non-divisible pool, whatever is part of non-divisible pool will completely go to the center. the center can keep it. But whatever is part of the divisible pool, they have to share it with what is called as a states. So therefore, it is for the Finance Commission to make the recommendation to the Union government how much of this divisible pool has to go to the states. So the latest Finance Commission that is getting implemented presently is the 15th Finance Commission. The 15th Finance Commission has made a recommendation that 41% till the year 2026, the recommendation of the 15th Finance Commission will get implemented. So they said 41% of the divisible pool shall go to the states. So what would be the 41% of this 500 units? So 41% of this 500 units would be 205 units. That means out of the 1000 units that is mobilized by the center as the tax, which we have taken as an example. So if 205 units go to the states, then remaining is 500 plus in the divisible pool 295. So overall money that is left for the center is 795. So 795 is the unit that is available for the center, which they can exclusively use it for their expenditure, for their developmental activities, schemes and all those things. But 205 unit is only for these states. But this 205 is only a vertical distribution, that is from the center vertically it is giving 205 units to the states. But again all these 205 units has to be shared horizontally between the 28 states. So this 205 units will be distributed between different states in our country. That is also will be done on the recommendation of the Finance Commission. So these are all some of the important duties that is done by the Finance Commission of India. But however, what is the composition of the Finance Commission, how they get appointed and all those things, I'll discuss when I take up the constitutional bodies. So therefore, now it should be quite clear to all of you, while the state can keep whatever the financial resources that they mobilize, the center has to share certain element of finances to the states because the states have more responsibilities and functions. That is one of the things that you have to keep in your mind. Now, before we conclude our discussion, we have seen some issues with regard to the legislative relationship. We have seen some issues with regard to the financial relationship. So similarly, there are certain issues with regard to the financial relationship also, not only in the administrative and the legislative relationship. So what are the issues that the states have with regard to what is called as a financial relationship? One of the important issue that the states have got is with regard to the terms and references of the Finance Commission. Terms and references of the Finance Commission means that what is the area or domain within which the Finance Commission has to function. So one of the important terms and reference or the function of the Finance Commission is to say as to how the financial resources is to be distributed between the center and the states. But who is going to set all these terms and reference? It is unilaterally set by the President of India. And the President of India act on the aid and advice of the Union Council of Ministers. Therefore, the states are having a concern while the Finance Commission plays an important role in suggesting how much money we are supposed to get. But what is the domain within which the Finance Commission has to function is unilaterally determined by the center, and the states are having no say in that. So that's basically one of the concern of the states. And apart from that, the states are also having concerns with regard to the granting aids which may be given by the center to the state. Now, what is granting aid? Apart from whatever is recommended by the Finance Commission of India, which is coming from the center to the states and then further horizontally distributed between all those states. Apart from that, certain states might get an extra grant from the center. And for what purpose this grant is given by the center to the states? These grants are given by the center to the states, especially in those states where there's a backward region. Especially in those states, there's a lot of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe population. For their development, special packages, special grants may be given by the center to the states. So you might ask that that's a very good thing if a grant is given by the center to the states. Why the states are having issues? The states are having issues because of the reason the states believe that this granting aid which is given by the center to the states is mostly politicized. So the centers are of the opinion, or their allegation against the center is that not necessarily the granting aids are given to the deserving states, but based on political equations, based on political alliances, these grants are given to the states and not necessarily based on what is called as necessity. So that is, and again, a concern which they have got with regard to the financial relationship. And then the third thing is because of the centrally sponsored schemes. Now, what is the centrally sponsored schemes? Centrally sponsored schemes are those schemes which are devised and planned by the center but has to be implemented by the states. The centrally sponsored schemes may be related to number of schemes related to various sectors like health, education, you have sanitation, and number of areas today these centrally sponsored schemes are there. Now, what is the problem with the centrally sponsored schemes? The states are believing the center is making this plan and asking us to implement this particular plan, and for which the center will give some financial resources also. The center usually shares 50% of the financial resources, and remaining 50% of the financial resources to be shared by the states. The states are of the concern, you give us some money based on the recommendation of the Finance Commission, but you also devise a plan as to where this money has to be spent. So once you give us the money, that is, once the center gives the money to the states are of the opinion we should be free to formulate a policy and spend that particular money as per the requirement of the states. But rather, because of the centrally sponsored schemes, the center is making a plan for the welfare of the states, and the center is asking the states to spend their money. Although 50% money is beared by the center, but 50% has to be borne by the states. So one is the states feel that they do not have the complete opportunity to decide. And second, the state feels that there is a need for an element of flexibility because the requirements of different states are different when it comes to welfare activities. So this centrally sponsored scheme is with an approach of one size fits all approach, that one particular scheme for the entire country, but different states in India might need different things. So therefore, the states are not happy with this also. They feel that unnecessarily the money is getting spent in certain areas. So these are all some of the issues that the states have got with regard to the financial relationship. So be it legislative relationship, be it administrative relationship, or be it financial relationship, in all the areas, more powers are given to the center. Not only more powers are given to the center, in all these areas, there is a dispute between the center and the states as well. All right. So this is again a very, very important for both your prelims and the mains examination. So before we wind up the lecture, so this will be your practice question. So please come to the practice question. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. Under the Constitution, the center can give directions to the state to ensure compliance with the law made by the Parliament. Is it possible or not? We have discussed it. The states must share their revenue with the center as per the recommendation of the Finance Commission. Is it the state which has to share the revenue with the center, or is it the center that has to share the revenue with the states as per the Finance Commission? Which of the statements given are correct? So try to put your answers in the comment box. Your comments are going to extremely motivate me to make further videos in this particular series and also in the other series. All right. And if you have any queries related to this particular lecture or related to the civil service exam preparation, you can reach out to me either through my Instagram account or through my Telegram channel. You can think me as your friend, guide, a mentor who can help you in this entire process. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you very much. All the very best. And of course, if you like this video, please share it with your friends and family members. Thank you.